worlds waging war in the unseen realm. Global events fulfilling biblical prophecy. Eternal life. What lies beyond mortality? From analyzing the paranormal from a biblical worldview to the discussion of cutting-edge science and technology, conspiracy, discovery, special investigative reports. Unafraid to explore the challenging issues facing humanity. Welcome to another edition of Skywatch TV. Special Investigative Report.
The foods that we're feeding our pets may be killing them. This is Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. We're in the middle of an investigation called Genetic Armageddon, how the science that we depend on to enhance our lives is fundamentally transforming the world around us. This coincides with the release of our documentary film Inhuman on how the transhumanist movement wants to rewrite the genetic code of humanity. But it also coincides with a book that I think is one of the most important that I've read in recent years. Dead Pets Don't Lie. It is a look at how what we are feeding our pets may not be what we think and how it's affecting their health. In studio with us today are the co-authors of this new book, investigative journalist Donna Howell and canine behavior specialist Joe Artis. Welcome.
Thank you, Derek.
In our previous discussion, we talked about the rendering process and how this crude protein or this meat byproduct or bone meal that goes into what our pets eat is created at these rendering plants and includes things that we would never imagine, like out-of-date meats from grocery stores, roadkill, diseased animals that die from natural causes or die prematurely before they're actually led to slaughter, things that we would never allow into the human food chain, chemicals that we would never allow, euthanized pets making it into pet foods. This is some pretty startling information, Donna, and you actually extracted some of this information from the rendering plants. How did you go about getting this information, and how difficult was it to find out what these rendering plants actually do?
Well, there is this very thick red tape line around everything. They are very secretive. They do not like to talk about what goes on behind their doors. In one specific instance, I was able to connect with one of the largest rendering plants in the U.S., and that is one of the interviews that's included within the book, but there were several others. In this particular case, when I called, I had some questions I asked the first several people that I was able to get in touch with. They kept kind of, passing me around and giving me the runaround. Finally, I got a hold of somebody that completely, she stopped up. There was dead silence on the other end of the phone. At one point, it sounded like she was whispering. She didn't know how to answer my questions. My questions were such as, once these pets are euthanized at these surrounding shelters and they're collected and they're taken to your rendering plant, they are, in fact, rendered into a protein powder, correct? Most of the time, the answer to that question was, well, sure, we render them, we turn them into protein powder. Not an ounce of surprise in anybody's voice at this point. But then, what is that protein powder? Where does it go? What is it turned into? What does it do? Does it show up in future generation pet food? And at one point, the line completely went dead. I was told to hold, and then the line went dead.
Oh, just an accident,
so,
I'm sure.
Lines go dead sometimes. So I called back, and they told me to hold on, and they put me through to somebody who came in, I'm assuming from some kind of a legal department, who is, prepared for those kinds of questions. I had to hold on hold for a while.
Well, when they recognized that it was her, it's like, oh, it's her again. There was this shuffling, and then a new person was introduced.
Right.
And introduced herself.
And this gal named Christina, she was very, very upbeat and friendly, very hi. And so when I gave her the questions, is this what's happening with the pets? Actually, that powder is sold internationally to places like China. Now, she was very, very rehearsed in her answers.
Public relations expert, likely.
And it was almost like she repeated the same thing. Like, okay, where did you say that they're sending? These are sent to places like China. And then my next question, what do they do? Where is this product ultimately going? Let's get to the bottom line. I was very nice, but let's get to the bottom line. What is it being used for? And then she answers, we are told to say that they are being used for things like fertilizer. And I said, hang on. You are being told to say? that they are being used for things like fertilizer? And she says, we are being told to say that they are being used for things like fertilizer. And I said, well, with all due respect, if you are being told what to say and it's going internationally, how can we trust that that's really what it's being used for? Then she gets kind of quiet for a minute. She stumbles over her words a couple times. She didn't have a rehearsed answer for that one.
Trying to find the right spot on the flow chart. If then this.
Right. The rebuttal. Well, there wasn't a rebuttal for that one. And she finally just said, that's true. We don't really know. And that's the whole conversations in the book. But that, I mean, ultimately, the red tape, it goes so high, and then you just don't get the answer you're looking for.
Well, we spent a lot of time in the previous program talking about some of the surprising things, shocking things that go into these powders and whatever that comes out of the rendering plant, and what then gets put into the pet food that our cats and dogs are eating. How is this affecting the health of our animals? I mean, we've got a dachshund that is the best dog we've ever had, and he's getting a little gray. He's like me; he's got the gray on the sides of the muzzle. You know, he's 15 years old. How is Sam's health being affected by this off-the-shelf, store-bought pet food?
Well, it kind of depends on what you're feeding him, Derek. So,
it's probably not the recommended stuff. I mean, he's got a certain brand that he likes, and he always likes it, and it's the stuff that looks like, cheeseburger.
Sure.
But in generally speaking, how is the health of cats and dogs being affected by these chemicals that are making their way into their food stream?
Well, in the last 15 years, we've seen a huge increase in what vets call mystery illnesses or rare diseases. When they simply can't explain why, let's say, a 6-month-old German Shepherd dies of stomach cancer. It simply defies any of the data that was gathered in previous generations before things like some of the chemicals we talked about in the previous program were introduced to using for preservatives. Okay, so there's the introduction of unnatural chemistry that's happening so that this food has a longer shelf life in which to sell. But I think we have to look at diet, because it isn't just stomach cancer, and that's not just an isolated case. Kidney failure. Okay, the dyes that are used. When you pick up a commercial bag of pet food, for example, and you look at it, you'll often see, and a lot of the main popular, big, colossal brand pet foods, you'll see a picture of a guy in a lab coat smiling. Well, this is almost certainly an actor that's placed on the bag to incite to the person looking at it that this food is recommended by a veterinarian.
Right.
People feel more confident about buying a product when they see a picture of a guy in a lab coat.
A white lab coat conveys authority.
It does. But we have to look at diet because the data is staggering. The number of mystery illnesses and undiagnosed deaths is 3 times what it was in previous generations. And the number of cases of stillbirths, kidney failure at less than a year of age.
And the more that these things are coming up in the veterinary circles, the more the veterinaries look at this and go, well, that's really common actually in this breed or that breed.
That's right. That's the other thing, is that our expectations for things like the length of life are dropping, and that becomes the new normal based on what people are feeding their pets. Now, I want to say very clearly, I don't want any part of these programs to come off as though I'm inciting in any way that vets are the bad guys.
No.
It's like Dr. Jean Hovey, who's going to be a guest in an upcoming program during this investigation in this series of programs. She even talks about when she went through veterinary school, receiving 2 hours of credited training by an individual who, we won't name the brand, but from a large commercial pet food brand, was the guy issuing the training. So he comes in under one of the big umbrellas from one of the big commercial pet foods, and he's the guy that's giving them their 2 credited hours of training on what nutrition should look like in pet food.
Yeah, and more than that, she pointed out that these major pet food manufacturers are actually funding chairs in the major veterinarian schools here in the United States. So the nutrition chair is funded by a company that's got a vested interest in the nutritionist finding that their food is recommended
That's
for
right.
your dog or cat.
That's also true with like kickback programs. Now, again, not every vet that has an incentive to sell you a particular pet food where he receives like at the end of 30 days, he gets a kickback check. Not every one of these people is a part of some big grand global conspiracy. But the fact is, unless they self-educate, a lot of vets do not have the required knowledge to then make a recommendation on what pet foods to feed your pet. Because
they are trained in treatment.
That's right.
They're not trained in prevention.
That's right. As a society, and you see this in people as well, as a society, we're moving further and further away from holistic approaches to curing various things, okay? Diabetics, for example, might develop diabetes. Some people have diabetes because of their diet. They develop diabetes over their lifetime to eating the wrong foods, lack of exercise, things like this. Well, often they'll see their doctor, and their doctor will say, we're going to give you a pharmaceutical response to a problem that your body is suffering under, instead of a holistic answer to pursuing the cure. So instead of using what God has outlined for the body in the first place, exercise, eating the right foods, they're going to give you pharmaceutical drugs that mask and deal with symptoms, right? It's the same thing in the animal kingdom. Pharmaceutical treatments to things that really often can be dealt with if better choices are made in terms of diet.
It's shocking, but important information. As we Christians are stewards of God's creation, we have a responsibility to do what's best for them because they can't choose for themselves when they're under our care. Our series, Genetic Armageddon, continues with the co-authors of Dead Pets Don't Lie on Skywatch TV right after this.
Coming exclusively from Skywatch TV for a very limited time starting November 17th, 2015. When you purchase the new documentary film Inhuman and the companion book Dead Pets Don't Lie from Skywatch TV, you'll receive the largest giveaway in Skywatch TV history. An unprecedented $300 in free books, audio sets, and DVDs to add to your library or to give away as gifts during this holiday season. Included in this limited time giveaway are never before offered free audio sets. Over 30 hours of the most sought after interviews in history with global experts combined on a special 2-disc volume set discussing the unfolding genetic Armageddon now underway and what you need to know to survive the future. Featuring Something Transhumanism This Way Comes, The Coming Replacement Humans, The Days of Noah, The Coming Zombie Apocalypse, Conspiracy Theory, Psychotronic Warfare. Also, for a very limited time, in addition to the never-before offered free best-selling audio sets, if you order before this special offer expires, you'll also receive the multi-part Skywatch TV special investigative report on Inhuman the documentary and Dead Pets Don't Lie, the award-winning book Forbidden Gates, Pandemonium's Engine, the best-selling DVD by dog behavior expert Joe Artis, The Natural Dog Training Method. The breakthrough book for pet enthusiasts everywhere, Do Our Pets Go to Heaven? 2 additional mystery books with a $40 value. And if you're one of the first 3,000 customers to place your order during this limited time offer, you will also receive, absolutely free, the groundbreaking WorldNet daily film, The Last Pope, featuring Tom Horn. Place your order beginning November 17th, 2015. Altogether, the never-before offered free 6 full audio series on a 2-disc volume set plus the 5 free books and 2 additional DVDs total an astounding $300 giveaway to add to your library or to give away as gifts during this holiday season. So it's urgent that beginning November 17th, 2015, you order the new documentary film Inhuman and the companion book Dead Pets Don't Lie for only $39.95 to also receive the largest giveaway in Skywatch TV history. But please understand this offer will end without notification and is on a first-come, first-served basis starting November 17th. So be sure to visit skywatchtv.com to follow the countdown to the greatest giveaway in Skywatch TV history. Order the new documentary film Inhuman and the companion book Dead Pets Don't Lie for only $39.95 to also receive the largest giveaway in Skywatch TV history. Coming this November.
I'm not sure that the world is ready to receive this.
Tom Horn, Joe Artis, Donna Howell, and the Skywatch investigation team join a host of global experts in the conclusion of a multi-year undercover inquiry that exposes what the U.S. government, the FDA, and monster corporations have been hiding from you.
We're talking about everything from the food that we eat to animals and pet animals to ultimately humans. Literally, what we have been doing with genetically modified crops, what we have and are doing with transgenically made animals, we fully intend to do with the human race. I mean, how many people know right now that the last scientist in Congress, Bill Foster, recently spoke before Congress. He wrote an article for The Hill in which he says that right now the top science departments in our government that dole out taxpayer-funded revenue have already been ordered to literally create the guidelines that are going to be used for genetically modifying the human race. I think 90% of Americans would be shocked if they learned that their cats and dogs were eating these diseased meats and euthanized pets.
During our investigation, we were able to verify that if your pet Fluffy had been euthanized at one of these vet clinics or one of these shelters, it would be recycled into food byproducts, toothpaste, cosmetics, deodorant.
The stench is overwhelming. It's unbelievable.
Coming in November, an unprecedented, official, and imposing undercover report that exposes what government agencies and greedy corporations are hiding about a genetic menace that is slowly, quietly, secretly killing and transforming all of creation.
They have made a Faustian deal with the devil. I'm talking about our government. They have sold out the best interest of Americans to greedy monster corporations that are in their back pockets.
Coming this November exclusively from Skywatch TV. Dead Pets Don't Lie. Inhuman the documentary. Survive the future.
Genetic Armageddon, science rewriting what it means to be alive on planet Earth, part of God's creation. I'm Derek Gilbert. We're talking with the co-authors of the new book, Dead Pets Don't Lie, Joe Artis and Donna Howell. We've talked a lot about the failure of the regulatory system to preemptively protect our pets. What does the FDA do when something comes along that we can demonstrate is harmful to our pets? Or how much evidence does it take for the government to step in and fix a problem?
Going back to what I had said when we spoke before about John Smith and his company, that he just starts without any pre-market approval. Let's say that his food makes a lot of animals sick. A person coming to the FDA and saying, you're the regulator, you're responsible for making sure that my dog or cat is going to be okay. And Fluffy and Fido are both dying as a result of this food. What are you going to do about this? The FDA's response is, in every situation, we would love to help you with that. We'll get right on it. We just need a few things. First, we need a chemical analysis of the food that you have been feeding your pet. And a chemical analysis has to come out of your pocket. You're entirely responsible for making that happen. So all the scientists that you have in your Rolodex, go find one and make the call. I mean, seriously, coming up with a chemical analysis from the FDA. They're not interested in helping you get that information. The second thing that they're going to need is a veterinary paper trail from the beginning of the symptom onset for the illness of the animal. They want to be able to prove that this is something that's going to point back to the food that you're complaining about. Now, as Joe mentioned earlier, that's a little bit difficult, and it's kind of in a shady gray area because veterinarians, by the way, they are not the bad guys, but a lot of them, they are trained to cure, but not to prevent. And their knowledge of pet nutrition and rendering plants and all these horrible chemicals that go into the food in the first place, unless they're really holistic and they do a lot of self-training past the point of their own veterinary education certification program, unless they do that and they go beyond that, they don't think to connect the dots from Fido is sick to it's the food. They think, oh, let's see, what breed is Fido? Oh, that's right, he's one that falls into this, he's going to have this rare disease, and it's becoming more common. So the paper trail that you have to get for the FDA from your vet has to point back to the food being the problem. And a lot of times you're not going to get that pointing back that direction from the vet. Between these two, it has to prove that it's the food that is the problem. Now, here's where it goes to the third kind of tier.
Yeah.
Once you have paid all this astronomically high expensive testing and blood tests, urinalysis, you have to be able to prove that it's the food. Once you've got that and you go back to the FDA and you say, here you go, the FDA, you know, at some point there's a mediation where this monster corporation is willing to pay you a lot of money out of court to keep your mouth shut. And this has been documented in a lot of court cases that are really, really hard to find. But if you read into it and you really look into it, you'll see that there have been a lot of out-of-court cases where people are paid to be quiet. So it only goes so far anyway, and the monster corporation is still, despite all the urinalysis, blood tests, chemical analysis of the food, the veterinary, despite all of that, they are still allowed to continue their poor practice within the food industry, and the FDA never really had to do anything about it.
Because they settled out of court, the FDA doesn't say you have to pull your food from the market and change the formulation. Basically, because it's settled out of court, the FDA says, okay, as far as we're concerned, this problem is solved.
Well, the FDA doesn't have any reason to spend its money, resource, time, talent, and energy pulling something from the market if they say, okay, guys, we're about to get in the middle of this. How's it going? And then everybody says, never mind.
We've settled out of court. These people got their money. They can go buy a new dog, and everybody's happy. And all the other poor dog and cat owners out there are still stuck thinking that what they're feeding their pet is helpful.
Yeah.
Besides health issues, Joe, as a canine behavior specialist, how do you see this affecting the behavior? I mean, the old saying, we are what we eat.
Right.
I presume the same thing holds true for our pets.
Sure.
How is this affecting dog behavior?
Sure. I won't name brands, but I've been in a lot of homes dealing with the kinds of dogs that a lot of traditional trainers don't want to deal with, particularly aggression and things like this. The ones that aren't suitable, example, for dog training class, okay? The ones basically that are on the brink of being euthanized. Food isn't to blame for every single one of these cases, but often what I have found is when a dog is labeled by the owner stupid or unfocused or scatterbrained or stubborn, when I've looked at what is being fed, you can see, missing pieces of fur. You can see the attention span might be being affected by the fact that it's a grain-based food, which is totally not native to what a canine should be eating in the first place.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, it's no different than if you put a child. I love Dr. Hovey's Spaghetti-O example that you'll be seeing soon on another up-and-coming program. But it would be like if you put a child on nothing but ice cream. Well, that child would probably live for a while on ice cream, right? But what's it going to do to the child's attention span? What's it going to do to the child's mood? Is he going to receive instructions from parents? Is he going to behave in a way that's conducive to the kind of life they want to build? It's no different with our pets. So when your pet is giving you all of these visual symptoms of irritability and missing pieces of fur and scratching and moaning and pawing, it's amazing to me that oftentimes food is like the last thing on a person's checklist. We've tried everything. We went to YouTube. We looked at training videos. We hired a trainer. This dog just doesn't pay attention. I'll give you a perfect example. And of course, we talk about this in the book, but a man named Shane calls me in. He's got a 12-year-old dog. The dog is wrapped in a sweater. I said, why is the dog wrapped in a sweater? He says, well, without the sweater, the dog eats through the skin and begins to pick and, kind of piecemeal and chomp away the skin. He's very irritated. And we've been told that it's a mystery allergy, which, by the way, is probably mycotoxins making its way into the pet food in the first place. Different subject, but molds with these cheap grains where they're stored for a really long time, often they'll end up with what's called a grain mite. Grain mite is like a sister mite to the dust mite. But grain mites move these mold spores. Grains are stored inappropriately. They're succumb to things like moisture. So the grains end up with mold spores and grain mites, which ultimately gives rise to microfungi and what are called mycotoxins, which, by the way, is deadly.
And it doesn't look like a bread loaf when it molds. I mean, this is all completely naked.
Right. It's invisible to the naked eye. But in any case, not to get off point here, but the point is that a lot of these grain, and it was a grain-based food is why I bring this up, but that is one of the largest contributors to hair loss, skin irritability, and it's almost always labeled by a veterinarian as a mystery allergy. Well, we don't know. It could be a mystery allergy. I looked at what this person was feeding. This was a man with means. He had plenty of money, but he's a perfect example of someone who walks into a commercial store and just makes a selection based on what they're being told or what bag looks like the dog they own. And I looked at it very briefly and I said, this is a very cheap, grain-based food, probably riddled with mycotoxins. This is going to create the mystery allergy that your vet is talking about. Try a grain-free, much higher-end feed. He made the change and he emailed me like 2 weeks later and he said, we've taken the sweater off. No, and by the way, this guy had paid his vet for topical ointments, pharmaceutical antibiotics that he was taking orally. He was administering to the dog orally to deal with the external symptoms of infection. So the amount of money that he saved immediately making a better choice with diet, and of course what's way more important is the quality of the life for this poor animal.
Yes.
I mean, imagine having a skin rash and being wrapped in a wool, or a potato sack and then being told, just, we want to train you, pay attention, I'm talking. You see what I'm getting at? So, so in many, many, many ways, quality food can make astronomical impacts to the behavior of an animal. And shockingly, when you look at feeding portions and doing it at the right times of the day, it's almost zero additional dollars. So I just want viewers to know, if they're thinking this is a huge astronomical leap in expense, it's not. You'll save money on vet visits, you'll save money on pharmaceuticals, and so forth.
And coming up on Skywatch TV as part of our continuing investigative series, Genetic Armageddon, we talk with holistic veterinarian Dr. Gene Hovey and some new research that's come out about genetic changes in dogs, apparently resulting from generations of feeding them corn-based products. The new book, Dead Pets Don't Lie, Joe Artis and Donna Howell, available November 17th. Thank you both for your work, your research. This is important information. November 17th is the date the book will be available. Also at that time, Inhuman, the documentary, a movie about the transhumanist movement and its implications for human genetics and the transformation that scientists want to make in God's creation as far as what it means for you and me to be humans. Stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV. The supernatural realm is real, and we humans are naturally curious about it. That's why there are so many television reality shows featuring ghost hunters and alien chasers and mediums and psychics. Now, by definition, we Christians believe in the supernatural, and yet most churches avoid these controversial topics. Our mission here at Skywatch TV is to address these topics of the paranormal and the supernatural from a biblical perspective. This is, after all, the authoritative book on the subject. But we depend on your help to do it. To find out more on how you can support Skywatch TV, prayerfully and financially, log on to our website, skywatchtv.com. Our mission also to keep you informed through news items we think are important and the latest news updates about Skywatch TV. You can follow those on the internet, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, various other places. And of course, all of our programs, if you can't watch them live, are archived at our website and our official YouTube channel. You can find all the places where you can see Skywatch TV and follow us on the internet at skywatchtv.com/web. And of course, you can watch our programming anytime, day or night, on demand through Roku. For instructions on how to add our Roku channel to your Roku account, log on to skywatchtv.com/Roku. And keep watching as we keep watch at Skywatch TV.